I think the fans will be happy with that. He did a great job when he went in 2019. I was there for a couple of the games at Goodison Park, and I thought he was excellent. Straight away, the players, they had an identity. There was an intensity about the football that they played. They went to a 4-4-2. Richarlison and I think Dominic Calvert-Lewin went up front. Every player seemed to know what they were doing. And as a manager, listen, you've got a coaching staff and you give them a shape to play in. As a manager, you're a mentor. You get them mentally prepared before they go out. I think he'll be pretty good at that, Duncan Ferguson.
Oh, he can fire them
He
up.
was emotional. I think the fans were really pleased to see him in the technical area, and he left it all out there, and I think he did a fantastic job, and it's no surprise to me that he's been given the chance to take the club again. He's safe hands. You know, he's got a lot of time for the club. He loves the club. He's been there for a long time now. He's got that affiliation with the football club, and he wants the football team and the club to do well. So, safe hands. He'll do a job until they get a permanent manager.
I mean, is he on trial, Simon, for the job full time? In some ways, I would think probably yes, to answer my own question.
With the thinking that we've seen from them, I think you could probably put Elmer Fudd on trial for the job on the basis of what they've done so far with their appointments. But in the short term, it's a pause for thought moment. You've got 4 games coming up that you would like to think you're going to get points out of. You know, you've got Man City at the back end of February, which you can pretty much write off in the way that they're playing. But you've got Villa, no easy game. And the real turning game, I think, is Newcastle away. And then you've got Leeds and Southampton at home, Southampton away, Leeds at home, Southampton away. So those 4 or 5 games take you up to the end of February, take you up to something like 24 games in the season, 14 games to go. And Duncan gives them that bounce. He gives them that lift. It's not about tactical nous, it's about getting the players to face the right way right now. Because if you look at the way that they're playing at this moment in time, they're miles off. They're miles off mentally. For whatever reason, they're miles off. And it won't take that much to give them that short-term bounce. If, for whatever reason, they don't get the short-term bounce from Duncan Ferguson, then they've given themselves a little bit of time to look around, to see what they think is right for their club, see what they think about what's right for the here and now and for the longer term, and they've given themselves time to look and see what they might what they might need to infill. But Duncan is a sensible. They don't need to say anymore. It's for the short term. It's for the here and now, for the immediate games. Do I think Duncan Ferguson will end up with the Everton manager's job? Well, given what I've seen before, I wouldn't put anything past them, but I would think that common sense will prevail and that Duncan will be rewarded for his endeavours if he has some success, will be brought back into the framework of the backroom staff, and they'll bring a manager that's capable of embracing an owner that wants to spend $500 million in a football club and get nowhere, and hopefully will now start looking to get somewhere.
So if they add to the squad, though, Simon, on whose recommendation
they're not going to
are
add
they
to the
adding?
squad. They're not going to add to the squad. They've done their buying, and it's very unlikely they're going to buy on the back of Duncan Ferguson. They've got their squad. They've sold their players. They've brought in players that obviously Benitez wanted to bring in. They've got players coming back. Mashiri's argument to you 4 or 5 weeks ago was we've got a squad that's capable of competing. It'll get better in the second half of the season, and that had nothing to do with additions. They've got additions in. One of them to replace Luca Dean for whatever reason, whatever we make of that. You know, we can make of it of one thing, that how ridiculous it was to sell a player that was probably a problem because the manager didn't want him and then get rid of the manager. Or there could be an argument that actually they were going to sell that player anyway and they wanted the money to be able to buy other players. Who knows what was going on behind the scenes of Everton and their thinking there, because it all seems so disjointed. But right now, do I think I'd be really, really surprised if Everton bought any players for Duncan Ferguson, because that's who you're buying them for in the here and now. So I think they've done their buying, and I think Duncan will be backside down and head up, or the other way around, whichever way you want to frame that conversation.
Well, at the moment, as you can see, I'm looking at the position. It is a dreadful league position. Played 19, won 5. I mean, so if they're going to add nobody, and I go with Simon on that, because why would they? Duncan's an interim charge. Do you know what, Trevor? They could get pulled right into it.
I don't think they will. And the reason I say that is because some of the key players that they've had out injured for most of the season are back. Mainly Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I think I was surprised that Richarlison played. Mustn't have been fit. He played Rondon instead of him, but Doucouré's back. He was out for a while. He's obviously the engine in there. Alan, I think Yerry Mina's more important than what we probably think he is. He's a very tall guy. I think he's a better defender than a lot of people give him credit for. And you look through the squad, Gomez, Gray's had a fantastic impact this season. I think they've got too much to get dragged into that, and I think with the players that I've just mentioned that are coming back into the side, I think they'll have too much.
On paper they have, Trev, but look at that side, that West Ham side that got relegated in it with Tevez and Mascherano and all the other players that West Ham. They the same thing. If they don't get their boots on and start to focus the right way, then they will get dragged in.
And that's why Duncan's probably the right man, because he won't let anyone.
And their saving grace is that the teams beneath them aren't going to be able to affect much more than they've already affected. I don't see Watford doing anything more than they've done. Yeah. And I think Watford are poor, despite the fact they look good at times. I think Norwich had their moment in the sun and they'll revert to type. And I think the Burnley are going to struggle. So I think the main benefit for Everton not having to do too much besides get some motivation into their players is that the other sides beneath them are very poor.
One of the other players that he brought in, he obviously brought in a left back while he was still at the club, Rafa. He brought in El Ghazi. Now, I watched El Ghazi dive a couple of weeks ago playing for Villa in the dying seconds of the game. Really dangerous situation to try and get Villa back into the game. For me, that's a player that you look at and you think, why would anyone touch him? If he's diving around like that, why would you touch a player like that? And all of a sudden, he's been offered to Everton and Everton have taken the bait. I don't understand it. I just don't understand it. So you have to say Rafa's made mistakes while he was there. He has brought some good players in. Rondon,
slightly.
I think with the fans, they're not really happy with that. But they needed a big guy up top. He was available. But when you look at Gray and look at Andros Townsend, they both brought a lot of quality to a very disappointing first half of the season for Everton.
I mean, the fact is they're not going to bring in any new players, Simon, so there's going to be no new faces. All right, so no bounce out of that.
There's enough there.
But is it also not the case that the fact that Benitez has gone gives them a bounce as well? He's out of there and everything that went with him.
Well, you would think so. I mean, there's certain players that won't like that. Andros Townsend was in here telling us he was the best thing since sliced bread. So that's a player that's been quite influential for Everton this season. That one may now no longer be as influential because he might be slightly marginalised by a different manager, might not have the same relationship. So it will have swings and roundabouts. But right now, what it needs, what you saw against Norwich, and despite the fact Norwich really did go for it, and chapeau to them, because I slaughtered them earlier last week, and they came back and won that game, and you have to give credit where credit's due, but my God, were Everton poor. They were poor to a man. Gomez couldn't pass the ball 2 feet. Yeah. They just looked dreadful across the balls. And so that is something that a different voice and a different outlook and a different disposition will be able to get something better, because there's no doubt Everton are better than the current position that they're in.
Do they beat Villa this weekend?
No, not for me.
See, I mean, there you go.
Yeah, but it's not Villa they need to beat. It's Newcastle and perhaps Leeds that they need to get points from.
Southampton.
And maybe Southampton.
Like
it's a hurry to get points on the board, Simon, isn't it? It really is.
I mean, let's be honest about it, Jim. You've got teams that are sitting full from bottom of the league on 13, 14 points on the turn of a season. This league is going to get people relegated on 31 points. That's going to be one of the lowest totals for the third team to go relegated ever. Yeah. So Everton need 12 points to stay up out of 19 games, and they've been terrible getting 19 points. I think they're going to get these points. It's going to be a waste of a season and a disappointment, and Everton fans are going to be incredibly disappointed. But I don't think they're going to get relegated, and I think Duncan Ferguson will give them a little bounce. And what I think will probably happen, unless they've already made their minds up on pursuing people like Mourinho and Martinez, then you're going to find the situation where Duncan will have enough to go through the season, keep them in the division, get some proper economic benefits for being there again for them, and then they'll get some joined up thinking for once.
Jim White and Simon Jordan, Monday to Thursday morning 10 till 1 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.